Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Is Hugh Freeze making another huge mistake? And Ryan Days responded to Kirk Herbstreit or Herb Kirkstreet. And then the Lenore Sellers transfer portal rumors has upset South Carolina folks big time. So we're going to get into all those stories, maybe even more. But without further ado, let's get right on into it. All right, we're going to start talking about Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. Now, this is a team that's got a lot of talent. They've been recruiting really well, and their defense is strong. I mean, there's no reason in the world for them to only win 5 games a year, which they've basically done the last 3. They just keep screwing up. They've got a good coach, I think, in Hugh, but for some reason, he keeps screwing up at quarterback. Now, before everybody starts giving me grief about, oh, you're getting on Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne, if you ever listen to him in an interview, is smarter than every coach just about in the SEC. I mean, he sounds like a professor when he speaks. But here's the problem. He throws interceptions, and he throws a lot of them. And he's a bit of a running quarterback, but he's not sudden or quick. He just takes advantage if there's an opening. Well, he throws almost as many interceptions as he does touchdowns, and he's done that really his whole career. He did have one decent year at Michigan State, but typically he just throws a lot of INTs, and you can't do that in the SEC. You just can't. You're going to lose a lot of ball games, and we saw that this year and last year. So for whatever reason, he stuck with him for 2 years, and you've seen the results. Now, if this team had gone and gotten a quarterback like a Cam Ward, for example, I believe he was out of Washington State. Of course, he went down to Miami and killed it. They're probably an 8-9 win team this year and working towards 10 because they're killing the recruiting. They've got that Yellowwood money. They got plenty of money. That's the other thing. But what Hugh Freeze said, he couldn't see spending $1 million on a quarterback last year. Now, he has no problem with Auburn spending $7+ million for him every year. That's fine. He just can't see somebody paying $1 million for a quarterback, which is a little bit odd. So let's get into this story about the quarterback they're going to use until Deuce Knight's ready. So they got Deuce Knight coming in. It's a very good quarterback, by the way. A guy that literally just about signed with Tennessee. He wanted to, but Tennessee went with George McIntyre. I keep wanting to call him George McKnight. But anyway, it's McIntyre. He was a 5-star, and I think he's a 4-star now. But anyway, those two guys were kind of neck and neck, and Heupel picked McIntyre. And so Deuce committed to Notre Dame. But then Auburn said, hey, we do have some money for you. But he wound up committing to Auburn. But he's going to be a true freshman next year. And he needs time to develop. You don't want to throw an 18-year-old out there. Unless they're just a phenom, it's not going to work out so good. So they need a guy for a year, at least a year. And here's what I read today about Auburn. It says, Auburn becomes front runner to land former Stanford QB Ashton Daniels. Daniels said, I love what Coach Freeze is doing with the culture, etc. But here's the problem. In 2024, he threw for 1,700 yards. He ran the ball quite a bit. But the downside is he threw 12 interceptions. He's a pretty good running quarterback, completes 60%, and then throws interceptions. What does that sound like? That's another Peyton Thorne. Yeah, he's experienced, but look, this was at Stanford. What do you think is going to happen when he goes into the SEC? You're not going to be able to run as easily as you did in the ACC. I can just go ahead and tell you that. You can forget it. So it sounds like he's probably going to bring in another Peyton Thorne type of player, which honestly, if Peyton had stayed at Michigan State, he'd have probably done much better. He would have struggled against the Ohio States, the Penn States, and the Michigans of the world with Connor Stalions, of course.
Sign stealer guy.
But he would have done well against the easy teams in the bottom half of the Big Ten. There are no easy teams in the SEC. It doesn't work that way. So Peyton struggled. Like I said, I think if he'd have gone to the ACC or the Big 12, he'd have been a solid quarterback. They'd have won like 8 games, maybe 9 games, and he'd had a good career there. But he wanted to see what he could do in the SEC, and so did Hugh. Not a good decision. That is just, look, you have to be special to play quarterback in the SEC. You have to be really fast. You have to have a great arm, and you got to be able to make good decisions, and you better not turn the ball over. It is the hardest position. It's the NFL G League. You might as well know that. So average or above average quarterbacks not going to work out so well. You need to go to the ACC, you need to go to the Big 12, or stay in Group of 5 or whatever. Now, I got 2 players for you that I think would be good picks. Maybe Caden Salter. He's actually a guy that was on UT's football program years ago. But he went up to Liberty and played really well. He's super fast. I mean, the guy can run like the wind. He throws a lot of touchdowns, doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He might be a really good choice. And Hugh knows him. Now, one of my Auburn buddies said they actually tried to get him, but there was some issue with transferring credits from Liberty to Auburn, which I can understand. So that was an issue. So he went Peyton Thorne. And the other guy that he should strongly consider is John Mateer out of Washington State. And I think that's where Cam Ward came from. And if you throw enough money over there, I think he would enter that portal and leave. Now, I don't think he's in the portal yet, but that would be a fine guy to get. He had a great year last year. Yeah, right here, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Let's see, he threw for 76% in 23, 65% in 24, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And running-wise, look, 826 yards, so he's a running quarterback, and he's in Power 4. So, again, I think that would be a good choice for them. That's where they need to go. They need a quarterback for at least a year. John Mateer would be great. Somebody along those lines. You need somebody that doesn't have an interception problem and can run and really run well. Caden would be a nice choice, I think, or this Mateer guy would obviously be right up there. Other than that, you know, if you're not going to get somebody at that level, you might as well – you can't really put Deuce Knight out there as a true freshman. That's not a good idea. That's bad for him. I think he's going to be really good long-term, just so you know that. I watched him play an entire game against IMG, and he was good, man. He's sudden, and he's got a real nice throwing style. Now, he's a lefty.
They ought to outlaw southpaws.
Why didn't you tell me this before?
I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Now look.
But he looks good out there. So anyway, hopefully Auburn won't make a Hugh mistake. See what I did there? Anyway, Auburn fans deserve better than this. They really do. You've got plenty of talent. You've had 3 bad seasons in a row. That's long enough. And for Hugh Freeze, I don't want to hear any reasons why you can't close. Nobody wants to hear that crap anymore. You're in the SEC. You chose to come here as a coach. There are no excuses.
Can't play in the man's game. You can't close them. Then go home and tell your wife your troubles.
Because only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
Yeah, you need to close the deal and get them to sign on the dotted line. Get one of those type of guys. Otherwise, it's going to be another crappy year, Auburn, and then they'll probably fire Hugh. There is no more time, Hugh. Okay, you've used up your entire grace period at Auburn. They're not putting up with it anymore. Just go ahead and tell you. So anyway, that's Auburn. Now I want to talk about Ryan Day. He has responded to Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk came out and said, hey, you know, it'd probably be better for Ohio State if they played on the road because all those boo birds, they're going to really be upset with Ryan Day. And the second they don't get a third down conversion and they've got to punt, that they're going to start booing him and all that. Now, a lot of people think that's a psyop by Kirk. And it might be. It might be to kind of get on the crowd to like kind of make them feel bad and sort of guilt them into being a good crowd again, which I think they're going to be fine. I think that's a bunch of hooey. I think that crowd's going to be fired up. And yeah, if they got way behind, I'm sure they would boo them. But other than that, I don't think it's a big deal. But he was asked about it, and Ryan Day responded.
Ryan, Kirk Herbstreit said on the College Football Playoff show today that you guys might have been better off with an away game because fans could boo on a potential early third down or 3 and out. What is your response to that? And what's your expectation and message to the fans ahead of this game?
Well, that happens sometimes on a 3 and out anyway, so we're good. We're used to it. No, I mean, we're fired up to be at home. We can't wait to be at home. It's going to be a great atmosphere, and our guys are fired up to go finish the season with a win in Ohio Stadium.
He also asked him about the Michigan loss, how much pressure that's put on him, etc.
You guys obviously wanted to beat Michigan. You wanted to win the Big Ten. That didn't happen. How much pressure does that put on you guys and you specifically to make an extended run in a playoff? And obviously you've got one really tough opponent, Tennessee, then the number 1 team next.
Like, I don't think right now that that's the case because you know, like coming off of that last game, you know, is there pressure to win that game? Yes. And I just think that, like, we moved on from that. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't go well. You know, did people press? I mean, you can say yes or no on that, but like we don't want that anymore. Like, we want to make sure that, like, when we're playing in this game, we're playing free. We're playing, you know, with our focus on winning the game and not worried about the consequences. And so that's what we're going to do in this game. And
yeah. So it sounds like maybe they were tight in that Michigan game. Maybe he was coaching tight. And, you know, look, people follow the leader. And if he's tight, the team's going to be tight. and kept running up the middle to prove how tough they are. That probably wasn't the best decision. So I think we're going to be looking at a different Ohio State in this game, probably more like what people have been used to seeing. And I told my viewers the other day that maybe we ought to put on a Michigan jersey for our guys in the first quarter just to get them in the right mindset. Anyway, I don't think that would play out too well. But anyway, that's what Ryan Day had to say. And pretty interesting. Those are two good questions. But yeah, it sounds like they were tight in that game against Michigan. That would make sense because there's no way they should have lost that game. There just isn't. It's ridiculous. All right. Lastly, we're going to talk about Lenore Sellers, the rumors and all that kind of stuff that maybe he might enter the portal and all that sort of stuff. And that's got some South Carolina folks upset. Of course, I've already upset Jackpot. He's been all tore up about it. But, saying there really aren't a whole lot of stories. It's just people, fans making these stories. I'm like, all right. Well, there's plenty of stories out there about it, multiple stories. And I've shown you at least two of them. And there's more than that. And people are talking about it. So anyway, I wanted to let you listen to Locked On Gamecocks. Now, I think this is a new fella. I don't remember him, so he may be new to this channel. I think they had a different guy a few months ago. But anyway, he responded to you. He wasn't happy about it either.
So as I'm about to record the show tonight, I call Zach Blackerby, who's like I don't want to call him my boss because I don't want to give him the satisfaction of that. But he runs all the college Locked On shows. And we're just kind of going over game plans for like content this week and since the season's over. And he's like, oh, you should talk about Lenore Sellers and him entering the portal. And I like about threw up. Like the 3 seconds of shock that I was in from him just saying that, I was like, what are you talking about? One, because I was very concerned that I had somehow missed that, even though it's my job. Two, that would be just unbelievably deflating and a huge gut punch if that happened. So I follow his instructions. I get on Google. I type in Lenore Sellers transfer portal, and sure enough, there's not just one. Like, I mean, there's a whole page worth of articles from, I wouldn't call them journalists. It's clickbaity sites that are saying, the 5 best spots that Lenore Sellers could land in if he entered the portal. I don't know what would prompt anyone to do that, because there has been not a single word from any camp that has even hinted at Sellers leaving. It's a kid that's, grew up, 70 miles away in Florence, led that team to a state championship. Now he gets his little brother coming in this recruiting class. He gets to play with his little brother, and be the face of the program of his home state. There's no chance in hell that Lenore Sellers is going to turn his back on Shane Beamer for one, this team for two, or the fan base, and go somewhere else. And listen, if he did, I would understand, because you're talking about what we all want, which is making more money, better opportunities, whatever. If somebody comes in and does like the Bryce Underwood thing, like they did at Michigan, and just drops, a bag of several $1 million, it's hard to turn that down. I would understand that.
So yeah, obviously it's really stirred a hornet's nest there in South Carolina land. Like I say, 2 different YouTubers upset about it. And I can understand why. Like I said, he is a good kid. I mean, 4.0 student, 3-star. I mean, he's easy to root for. And he's developed quite a bit this year. He's still not there yet. He's still got some fundamental problems with footwork and things like that, but they're working on it, man. I'm telling you, you can see this guy doing this. But here's what I can also tell you. Listed in that fan-sided was FSU. Mike Norvell wants to save his job and to get things back squared away, because they're very upset in FSU land, and they got plenty of money. And they're used to coming up and raiding South Carolina's roster.
Hi, this is going to be a great year.
They've done it quite a bit. And let's talk about why this is something that people are talking about because of South Carolina having a really good player like this. He's a great player. They let 3 different all-SEC level players leave over the last few years. Marshawn Lloyd, he was averaging 5.2 yards a carry in the SEC, and South Carolina needed a running back. He walked and went to USC, where he went to a 7-yard average because, competition. Then they had another guy by the name of Jaheim Bell, who was a tight end and a really good one. Well, because South Carolina didn't have a running back, they were forcing him, or asking him, however you want to put it, to run the ball a whole bunch. And he was like, I want to be a tight end. So FSU went in the portal, got him, gave him a bunch of money, and then went down there and they went 13-0. And then last year, I believe it was, Juice Wells, who was a preseason All-American, wound up going into the portal, and he goes to Ole Miss, where Lane Kiffin's over there, loving it. And Lane Kiffin didn't mind taking a good player from another team in the SEC. So that's 3 high-quality, difference-making players that have left South Carolina over money. So why would you not think, crap, they got this great player, Lenore Sellers, he could be phenomenal. You've got teams that are desperate like FSU and Auburn who badly need a quarterback of that level. I mean, he could change things significantly for FSU like that. Same thing for Auburn. And they're both, not only Hugh Freeze, but also Mike Norvell, they're under tremendous pressure. And they've got big, giant contracts, and they need to justify that. So anyway, that was Locked On, which we've got a Locked On guy up here, Eric Kane. He's great, man. People love him up here. And I enjoy the Locked On. I think they do a good job. And whenever you want information on a team, you can usually go to Locked On, and there's somebody on there that knows what they're talking about. But anyway, it surprised me he wasn't aware of it. But the fact that he was ticked off, I completely understand. If I was a South Carolina fan and we let Lenoris walk, I'd be ticked. And here's the thing. I understand that he's from there. But when somebody doubles let's say they're offering him $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 to stay at South Carolina, and Auburn walks in there, how about $1.5 million, and we'll take your brother too. No problem. We got room for him. What's he going to do? What if they offer him $2 million and you're offering him $1 million at South Carolina? That's life-changing money. So what if they offer him $4 million for 2 years? Just something, I'm telling you, a guy like that can get his number if he wants. So South Carolina needs to get their money up, make sure they keep him and that Dylan Stewart too, the guy on the defensive line. Man, that guy can play. So they've got a good foundation there with those 2 guys on offense and defense. You can't let either one of them walk. That's just a fact. He's right. It would be devastating for South Carolina. So anyway, I just brought it out and said, hey, this is what everybody's talking about. And, the fact that Jackpot went after me, that's okay. Look, as I've said, all I'm trying to do is be a good Samaritan, help out South Carolina, even though they had our signs in 2022. Allegedly. But, no good deed goes unpunished. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 right there it is. Hit that little button. Won't cost you a dime. And right over here's the most recent video, YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.